So inshallah we'll start regarding the Battle of Badr. We'll try to go through it inshallah in a summarized manner because obviously all of us, we were busy in our own things throughout the night. But there's a lot of benefit to take from the story of the Battle of Badr. There's a lot of lessons that we can gain from it. Some of those lessons being the value of Iman and the value and the degree that the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ were ready to go, the sacrifice that they were willing to give for the sake of Iman, right? And it shows us as well Allah Ta'ala's help with the believers, and how when the believers will properly give sacrifice, then that's when the help of Allah Ta'ala will come. Along with that, it took place within the month of Ramadan. So that's a lesson for us of struggle, right? It took place within the month of Ramadan. So it's a lesson for us regarding the struggle of the month of Ramadan, but along with that, the fath, the victory that will come with that struggle, right? There's the battle of, in the battlefield, this was the battle of the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ. Then there's the battle that we're all fighting in the month of Ramadan, which is our nafs, right? So just like the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, by Allah's help, got victory over the enemies, we should ask Allah that He give us victory over ourselves, that He give us victory over our nafs. So a few things to keep in mind, that the Battle of Badr, of course, took place after the years of torture that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum faced in Makkah, and after the Hijrah Mubarakah. And as well, along with the Battle of Badr, before the Battle of Badr, just by a few months, that was when, according to some of the ulama of Sirah, that the Qibla had changed. So the Qibla from the direction of Al-Aqsa to the Haram Makki to Makkah Mukarramah was changed. In this, the scholars say this was a sign for the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba that now your direction is going to be going back to Makkah Mukarramah, and that this is now the beginning of your victory, and how Allah Ta'ala will once again, He's changing your direction to Makkah, and so one day He will take you back to Makkah Mukarramah. So the Battle of Badr in reality was not intended to be a battle, right? So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, although it turned out to be a battle, the Prophet ﷺ himself, nor did the enemies as well, for the most part, most of them, except for some, and we'll explain that reason after why, they did not intend battle. But rather in reality what was that there was a caravan of Abu Sufyan which was going from Makkah Mukarramah to Syria, right? And so this was how, of course, the people of Makkah made their money. Rihlatul Shita, it was safe. This was very important for them. But this caravan was very special because, for the people of Makkah, because it was a very wealthy caravan. How was it very wealthy? Some of the ulama mentioned that it was because they had many possessions of the Muslims that they had taken. Houses and their material, their things of the people of the migrated Muslims. They took their stuff, they kept that. Along with that, a lot of people of Makkah gave to do business with Abu Sufyan. So they say that this caravan was coming back from Syria with 1,000 camels and wealth on those camels equivalent to 50,000 dinars. The scholars of our time, they'll try to calculate this, and they'll say, and how, if you were to bring it in modern calculation, how millions of dollars it would be, millions of dollars. So this was a very very wealthy caravan. Now, originally, before the Battle of Badr, there was another expedition of the Prophet ﷺ, which was known as Ghazwatul Ushayra, and that was originally when the caravan was going to Syria. So when the caravan was going to Syria, the Prophet ﷺ and his companions decided to intercept the caravan. However, they missed it just by one day. So that on the way back, Abu Sufyan and his people, after speaking with Bedouins around the area, they learned that the Sahaba and the Muslims are looking for this caravan. So this is why on the way back, Abu Sufyan and the caravan, they were extra careful. They were trying to be extra careful. So when they were on the way back, then the Prophet ﷺ had sent two of his Sahaba radiallahu anhuma, Talha radiallahu anhu and Zayd bin Zayd radiallahu anhu. He sent them to go and to find out about this caravan, that has it returned, where is it, and whatnot. So when they got news of the caravan, and they actually, with their own eyes, they saw this caravan, they then returned back, as quickly as possible, and they came and they told the Prophet ﷺ of this caravan. And so then right away the Prophet ﷺ had told the Sahaba that whoever is ready, that we must leave now. And so the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were told that whatever animal, whatever you have, just gather it now if you can go, and then come with us right now. Now when that happened, obviously whatever was available, that's what they were taking. So it's known that the caravan of the Muslims then, that was going to intercept the caravan of the kuffar, they only had around 100 camels, right? And each camel then only had around, each camel was being shared by 3 people. So the fact of the matter was that they did not, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and again the Prophet ﷺ, they did not go with much, and this was because they did not intend battle. They only intended to intercept the caravan and to take the goods of this caravan. Now the question rises, why would the Prophet ﷺ and the caravan, the Muslims, want to intercept this caravan and take its goods? Right? Obviously now, looking at the fact that there's really no rules for the kuffar, and the fact that they tormented the Muslims for years, this is really not a big kind of repel for the Muslims. This is not a big revenge or repel, however you want to call it. So the Prophet ﷺ then decided that they go and they do this. Now Abu Sufyan was already very worried. He was already very worried because he knew that the Muslims were searching for this caravan. So then on his way back, he kept asking Bedouins. This was a way that you would find out at the time, that the Bedouins living of the area, you'd ask them, did you see anyone strange? Did you see anyone you didn't know of? So then he came across some Bedouins. He asked them, did you see anyone who's not local to this area? He said, yeah, we just saw 2 people. They had their camels and they left. So then he said, show me where they camped. So then he went to that area, and then he was a very intelligent man. He saw the camel dung, and he opened the camel dung, and he saw the date seeds of Medina. So by that then he knew that these were people from Medina, the Muslims. So then right away this caravan then they asked for a guide so that they could take a route which was not the normal route. At the time, they had general routes, they had highways, right? We were just talking before Fajr that the people were very civilized at that time. They had highways, they had general routes from going place to place. So they decided then to take a completely different route. Now, along with that, Abu Sufyan then decided that we should probably send for reinforcements. We should ask for help. So then he sent a person by the name Damdam to go back to Makkah Mukarramah and tell the people of Makkah that to send reinforcements just in case we need help. Now when he went back, there's a story that is narrated regarding a dream that came into a vision that came into the dream of the aunt of the Prophet ﷺ, Atika bint Abdul Muttalib, right? Atika bint Abdul Muttalib. So she saw a dream before this Damdam came from the caravan to Makkah Mukarramah, that a person came and he was crying on his camel, and he came in an aggressive manner, and he started to shout out to the people of Makkah that, O traders, Ya Ghudar, your death is coming to you. Your death is coming to you. And then he went on the Kaaba and he said the same thing. And then in the dream, she also saw that there was a boulder that came off of the mount of Abu Qubais, and it broke into pieces, and then pieces of that boulder then went on every household of Makkah. So this was a sign for what? That there would be people who would be defeated from every household. And that's in reality what happened then later on in the Battle of Badr, that every household of the people of Makkah, one of their person was murdered in the battle. So this was one of the dreams that she had saw before Damdam had came. Now when Damdam, or before Damdam came, this news spread around. How did it spread around? Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, he's the only one that she told. And she told him, obviously, that don't mention to anyone, because then this would cause chaos. Now, Al-Abbas, he himself said, okay, I won't. But then he ended up telling. And he told a few people, the news spread around. Abu Jahl found out. When Abu Jahl found out, he came to the Prophet ﷺ, he came to Al-Abbas and he said to him that in a very taunting manner, that first you got your clan, the Hashimis, you guys claimed that you have a male prophet. Now you're saying you have a female prophet? That she's telling us prophecies? You know, what is this? So out of embarrassment, Al-Abbas, he denied everything that was said. However, when the days passed, it is narrated that Abu Jahl, his face would become more pale and more pale. And then on the third day, when Damdam made it back to Makkah Mukarramah, right? Al-Abbas came to the Kaaba, and there was a place where the Ashraf, the great people of Makkah would sit. He saw Abu Jahl there, and he saw already the reaction on his face. He saw already the reaction on his face. And so then it had happened that Damdam had already reached, and he gave the news, and he told the people of this matter. So then Abu Jahl, of course, he said, we must go and we must battle these people, and we will take all of the camels that we have, we will take all the people that we have, and we will even take the singing girls, the qainat, and we will take our wine, and we will take our meat, and we will go and we will show the people of Arabia that we are courageous. And so we will go to the land of Badr, and we will enjoy over there for 3 days, and we will show that we are people who are courageous. Now, many of the people then, of the greatest enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, many of them became cowards, and many of them, and there's many stories of that, but we won't go into the details of that. But many of them tried to step away, but they could not. So then they ended up, due to the jahiliyyah that was in them, that we need to protect our tribe, we need to protect our people, right? That we need to do this. And specifically, Abu Jahl also, why did he want to fight so badly? Because he was also, of course, part of the Quraysh, but he was Makhzumi. And there was already trouble between Hashimis and Makhzumis. Right? This is why when Abu Jahl approached Al-Abbas, he was very happy to make him embarrassed and to tell him, what he said regarding his sister, the aunt of the Prophet ﷺ, because they had already a rivalry. So then they prepared, and they went out into battle. Now, it is narrated that Allah Ta'ala said in the Qur'an that وَإِذْ أَخْرَجَكَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَيْتِكَ بِالْحَقِّ وَإِنَّ فَرِيقًا مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لَكَارِهُونَ. That remember when Allah Ta'ala took you out of your household by His command for haqq, for the truth, right? For the truth that would be upheld. And there was a group of the people that were very, they weren't very as sure as to what was going to happen. Right? Because the Prophet ﷺ had told them that we are going to intercept the caravan. However, the plan could change. Now, when the Prophet ﷺ told them about this, that when they reached the area of Badr, and they realized that they had not reached the caravan, because Allah Ta'ala had already revealed to the Prophet ﷺ that وَإِذْ يَعِدُكُمُ اللَّهُ إِحْدَى الطَّائِفَتَيْنِ, that we promise you 2 things. What were those 2 things? Either you would intercept the caravan and get the goods, or either you would be victorious over the people of Badr, over the kuffar. Now when they reached the area of Badr, and they realized, well, the caravan has got away, now only the secondary option is remaining, that we will have to do battle. So the night before Badr, the Prophet ﷺ then it's narrated, and the stories are very famous regarding this, that he made a lot of dua, and then he called the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and then he spoke to them, and he asked that we have come now, and this is the condition, and are you ready for battle? And so then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he said, Amanna bika wa saddaqna, that we believe in you, and we have brought our trust within you. And then he asked again, but what should we do? What is your mashwara? What should we do? So then Umar radiallahu anhu said, he stood up and he said the same thing. Now the Prophet ﷺ asked a 3rd time and a 4th time. And the reason why he kept asking was because the Muhajirun, of course, they vouched that they would be with the Prophet ﷺ from day 1 to the end. However, the people of Medina, the Ansar, when the bay'ah before Hijrah and everything took place, they mentioned that we would protect you in Medina. And technically that was their promise with the Prophet ﷺ. And this is, Badr is outside of Medina. Badr is actually a few days journey by camel outside of Medina. So then from them their leader, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, stood up. And he said, "O Allah, you probably are seeking, لَعَلَّكَ تَقْصِدُنَا, maybe you're seeking to hear what the Ansar have to say. And so I would speak on behalf of the Ansar, that we have brought our belief in you, we will follow you. And even if you tell us to go into the oceans with you, we will follow you. We will follow you." And so, and who was Sa'd bin Mu'adh radiallahu anhu? Something important to know about him. He was one of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu that the Prophet ﷺ said when he passed away in a battle later on, not in the Battle of Badr, but in a battle later on, that اهتز له عرش الرحمن, that the Arsh of Allah Ta'ala has shaken for this person. So he stood up and he said this. And Al-Miqdad bin Aswad radiallahu anhu, it's also narrated that he said, he also said a very beautiful statement, that he said, "O Rasulullah, we will not say to you what the Banu Israel said to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, that you go and take your Lord with you and fight, but we're going to stay here and we're going to sit. Rather, we say to you that you go and your Lord go and you fight, and we will be right there with you. We will be right there with you." So when they got there, one of the tactics that they used was that they blocked the wells so that the kuffar would not have access to water, right? And this became a very troublesome matter for them, because then many of them, the kuffar, became thirsty. And it's even narrated that within that night, before the Battle of Badr, that one of the kuffar became, he became so thirsty that he tried to come to the camp of the Muslims to take water. But then Abu Bakr and other Sahaba, they were able to attack him, and he wasn't able to get water. In that night, it is known that in the midst of the night, that the Prophet ﷺ made great dua. And along with him was Al-Miqdad bin Aswad radiallahu anhu. And they were saying Ameen, and they were making dua. The Prophet ﷺ, from the famous words of his dua, he said, "O Allah, there is a camp of people over here, that, O Allah, if you do not give them victory, then if they are to die, then there would be no one to worship you. There would be no one to worship you." Now, what was the number of the Muslims? They were around, they say, 313 approximately. Another number is 317. Right? And what's amazing is that this number is also similar to the number of the army of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam when he went to battle Jalut. And there's many similarities. It's known that when Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam battled Jalut, he threw a rock at Jalut. The Prophet ﷺ will go on to this later on. During the battle, he threw rocks at the kuffar as well. So there's a symbolism and relationship over there. It's narrated that in that night, Allah Ta'ala, it said in the Qur'an, Allah Ta'ala says, إِذْ يُرِيكُهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَنَامِكَ قَلِيلًا, that in that night, Allah Ta'ala showed the Prophet ﷺ, more or less the battle. And He showed that they would be even though the kuffar were in a great number, He showed them to be in a small number to the Prophet ﷺ. And that's exactly what happened in the next day as well. It's even narrated that the Sahaba during the Battle of Badr, they asked each other that, how much do you think is the number of the kuffar? One will say, oh, maybe I think 70, maybe I think 80. When rather, how many were they? Approximately 1,000. How do we know that? In that same night before Badr, the Muslims a few of the servants of the kuffar made their way, and they were near the camp of the Muslims. So then some of the Sahaba captured them and they brought them, and so they started to interrogate them and ask them questions. So then they said, we are with the kuffar. And so then the Prophet ﷺ, after that, he asked them that how many camels are the kuffar slaughtering a day? So then they said around 9 to 10 camels, right? Which is, each camel would suffice around 100 people. So from the intelligence of the Prophet ﷺ, he knew from that they are around approximately 1,000 in number. Now in the next day, during the battle, before the battle had taken place, the Prophet ﷺ then started to align the rows, and he aligned them. This was the way he did it, that he would align it just like we align our saf within the salah. And this was because Allah Ta'ala likes this, like He says in Surah As-Saf, that Allah Ta'ala likes that the saf be in this strong manner, like the way the angels make their saf. When he was making this saf, he was, with his arrow, he was telling each person to stand in the line. One of the Sahaba, Suad radiallahu anhu, he kept going back and forth. So the Prophet ﷺ, he poked him a couple times, that stay in your place. So then, before the battle had taken place, the Prophet ﷺ asked them that, we're going into battle, we don't know, is this our last day or what this is, right? So the Prophet ﷺ said to them, is there any person who I may have wronged, so that he may take his share from me, his qisas from me? So then this person, Suad, he came forward. And this is the time of battle. He comes forward and he says, O Rasulullah ﷺ, you poked me just before we made our lines. So the Sahaba are thinking that there's kuffar in front of us. There's a battle going place. Why are you doing this? So then the Prophet ﷺ says, okay. So then he picks up his rida, his shirt, and he says, iqtassa minni, take your qisas. So then, now he's going forward. They're looking at him, why is he going forward? But then what does he do? He jumps on the back of the Prophet ﷺ and he kisses the seal, the khatam of the prophethood. The Prophet ﷺ asks him, why are you doing this? He says that, oh Allah, I don't know how much time I have left. Oh Rasulullah, I don't know how much time I have left with you. I want that the last moments I be with you, I am kissing you and I am touching you. This was the love of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu with the Prophet ﷺ. Before then they went into battle. The Prophet ﷺ started making dua. When he started making dua, he was making dua continuously. And this is a lesson for us, because any step we take, my brothers, that in our deen, for any step to make our deen higher, we need the help of Allah, we need dua. These are the ibadah, this is what we need for success and for victory. He was making dua, so much so that then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu came and he said, enough ya Rasulullah, Allah Ta'ala will give you what you promise. So then wahi came on the Prophet ﷺ, right there and then. His head went down and wahi came. After that, the Prophet ﷺ, he turned his face to the Muslims, and Ibn Mas'ud says that the Prophet ﷺ's face at that moment was shining more than the full moon. And he said, Abshiru, take the glad tidings that Jibreel ﷺ is here right now, and he's on his horse, and with him is an army of angels, and he's turbaned, and with him is his sword. And so then the Prophet ﷺ recited an ayah, سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرِ. This is an ayah from Surah Qamar, that the gathering, referring to the gathering of the disbelievers, they will be defeated and they will run away from the battlefield. Umar radiallahu anhu says, it was at this moment I understood this ayah. I never understood this ayah before. I saw this and then I understood this. Now, now some stories of what happened during the battle. When the battle was beginning, the Prophet ﷺ, he grabbed some pebbles from the ground and he threw those pebbles. And he said, Shahat al-wujuh, that may the faces of these people be distorted. And it said that the disbelievers lost their sight, they became blinded from this. And this is referenced also in the Qur'an. Allah Ta'ala said, and this is the help of Allah Ta'ala, this is the honor of Allah Ta'ala, that He said that وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. That, O Rasulullah, you didn't throw when you threw, rather Allah threw. Right? This is the meaning of when you obey Allah Ta'ala, He becomes your hands, He becomes your ears, that Allah Ta'ala's help is with you. So then some of the stories, we'll just quickly go through them of what happened during the battle. You can see the iman of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum in their sacrifice. There's a Sahabi by the name Umayr ibn al-Hammam radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ said to the Sahaba that قُومُوا إِلَى جَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتِ, that stand up and go towards the gardens that its span, its place is greater than the skies and the earth. Greater than the skies and the earth. And this was something very beautiful, because the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they sung poetry about Jannah when they went into battle. Why was this? Because they learned this from the Prophet ﷺ, that when you're going into battle, don't see the battle, see Jannah. You're not seeing the battle, you're seeing Jannah behind this. So this Sahabi, he heard this, and he had dates in his hand, and so then he threw the dates, and he said, my life is too long if I'm able to finish these dates. And he went right into battle then. regarding the battle of the Prophet ﷺ, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, great hadith scholar of course, one of the greatest commentators of the Sahih of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he says that even the Prophet ﷺ himself battled within the Battle of Badr. And that Ali radiallahu anhu says that he was the most courageous in this battle. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhu said that when we feared that we would get hurt, we came to the Prophet ﷺ so that his body would defend us. Allah Ta'ala said in the Qur'an that, remember when you were seeking help and Allah Ta'ala answered you with 1,000 angels. And so these 1,000 angels, they came, and actually we know that they didn't just come as 1,000, rather than more came, then 2,000 came after them, 3,000 came after them. And this was to keep reassuring the hearts of the Muslims. And what Allah Ta'ala said, إِذْ يُوحِي رَبُّكَ إِلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ أَنِّي مَعَكُمْ فَثَبِّتُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. That remember when Allah Ta'ala revealed to the angels that I am with you, so go and make the feet of the believers steadfast. It is narrated to us that some of the kuffar, when they heard the trampling of horses coming from the sky, they fainted. That where are these horses coming from? It's also narrated to us that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum many times, when, for example, over here one of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, he narrates and he says that he heard the sound of the angel saying, "Go forward, O Hayzum," calling the name of his animal. And he heard the sound of a whip. And so when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum raised his sword, before he put his sword down, already the nose of the kafir already was sliced apart. It already came off, right? But there's a point that we have to take from this, which was what? That the help of Allah Ta'ala will come, but you still have to put your effort. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, whenever the angels helped them, first they raised their sword, and then after that the reinforcement came by Allah Ta'ala in the form of the angels. It's narrated that all of the angels came down in garments which were in a kind of cream color, which was the same color of the imama, the turban of Zubayr ibn al-Awwam radiallahu anhu. And this was something narrated in his honor. It's also narrated that there was a Sahabi radiallahu anhu by the name of Ukasha ibn Mihsan radiallahu anhu, and he did not have weaponry. Remember, they did not come out for battle. He did not have a sword. So the Sahaba, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, "What should I do?" The Prophet ﷺ grabbed twigs and gave it to him, and he said, "Go and battle with this." He said, the Sahabi Ukasha says that became the best sword that I ever owned, and I will use this sword for the rest of my life. And he used that sword for the rest of his life in battle. It's narrated that Abdul Rahman bin Auf radiallahu anhu, when he was battling, this is a very important point, that he was in battle and he saw on his side, he was looking that, there must be some strong people with me that will defend me. But when he looked to his side, he saw two young men. But these two young men were very, very important. These two young men, what are their names? One is named Mu'adh ibn Amr al-Jamuh radiallahu anhu, and Mu'awwidh, the name of the other Sahabi radiallahu anhu. So they came to Abdul Rahman bin Auf radiallahu anhu and they said that, "Ya Ammi, oh my uncle, do you know what Abu Jahl looks like?" They went straight to the captain. Straight to the captain. "Do you know what Abu Jahl looks like?" He says, "Yeah, but what do you want with him?" He says, "We want to go and avenge the Prophet ﷺ. We want to go and avenge the Prophet ﷺ. We heard that he cursed the Prophet. We heard that he hurt the Prophet." So then they were going with him. It's narrated that these young Sahabi, when they were running towards the camp of Abu Jahl, they were so small that their swords were hitting the ground when it was in their sheath on the side, right, when they were traveling. So then they went to the camp, and then they found Abu Jahl and they attacked him. When he attacked Abu Jahl, the son Ikramah defended him. So then Ikramah, he sliced off the arm of Mu'adh radiallahu anhu. Now how strong was Sahabi radiallahu anhu, that when his arm was dangling by one ligament, he said, "This arm is going to be a burden for me in the Battle of Badr." He put his leg on that arm and he took the arm off, and he continued to battle in that battle. And then one attacked the leg, and then one attacked Abu Jahl again. However, they did not completely take the life of Abu Jahl yet, but he was injured completely and he was on the ground. These are some stories regarding within the battle, but now after the battle. When the Muslims were victorious, the Prophet ﷺ asked, where is the body of Abu Jahl? Where is the body of Abu Jahl? So he sent some Sahaba radiallahu anhu, they went out. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu went out and he found the body of Abu Jahl. And Abu Jahl was still breathing his last. So then he went to Abu Jahl. He said, have you found your fate now? Right? And even then he was out of takabbur, saying, what fate? Who said we lost? So then he puts his foot on Abu Jahl. Ibn Mas'ud puts his foot on Abu Jahl, and then so Abu Jahl says to him, you have put your foot on a high place, O shepherd. You have put your foot on a high place. So then he took, there were some few other words that were exchanged, and then he took the last blow. And so the honor of kind of completely taking the life of Abu Jahl was by the hands of Ibn Mas'ud. When he brought then back the head of Abu Jahl to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, first seeing this, that know that هَذَا فِرْعَوْنُ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ, this is the Fir'aun of this ummah. Then he said to him, O Ibn Mas'ud, do you remember when you recited Surah Al-Rahman by the Kaaba and Abu Jahl attacked you and he hurt your ear? So now you have an ear for an ear, and the head is the mercy of Allah, the fadl of Allah Ta'ala. There are other stories as well narrated, but we won't try to cut off now, inshallah. But again, the Battle of Badr was known as Yawm al-Furqan. It was the day that the Furqan is known as what? The day that things are separated, right? What was separated on this day? Haqq from batil, the truth from falsehood. Right? Mu'minun from disbelievers, believers from disbelievers. So much so that what's narrated regarding this as well. One of the Sahabi, he was put through a challenge. His name was Abu Ubaidah ibn Amr ibn al-Jarrah, and he was battling, and his father was on the side of the disbelievers. Right? His father was on the side of the disbelievers. So whenever his father came to attack him, he went to the side. That he doesn't want to fight his father. He doesn't want to fight his father. Right? But then it came to a moment where his father cornered him, and so he had to defend himself. And so he took the life of his own father. But what do the ulama say about this? Right? This was not Abu Ubaidah taking the life of his father. This was Abu Ubaidah, his sword taking the life of kufr. This was not a battle of people against people. This was a battle of iman and kufr. This was a battle of iman and kufr. So then the Prophet ﷺ, after the bodies, and this shows how generous and how good the Muslims are. The Prophet ﷺ commanded the Sahaba that take the bodies of the kuffar so that they can be disposed in one place as well. So they took those bodies and they threw it into a well. After that, the Prophet ﷺ said to them that هَلْ وَجَدْتُمْ مَا وَعَدَ رَبُّكُمْ حَقًّا, have you found what your Lord has promised truthful? So Umar radiallahu anhu said to him that, O Rasulullah, you're speaking with these people, they're dead. How are they going to hear you? The Prophet ﷺ said to him, they are not hearing me any less than you. They are not hearing me any less than you, except that they cannot respond. And so, my brothers, this is more or less, a summary again of the Battle of Badr, the struggle of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, their sacrifice from Iman. One of the most important things we must take from this is what? That they did this so that Iman could reach us. Right? They gave their lives so that Iman could reach us. So now we have that responsibility as well, that we keep this Iman, we preserve it within ourselves, that we sacrifice as well, and our sacrifice is much less. Our sacrifice is much less, right? Allah Ta'ala is not asking us for this type of sacrifice in Ramadan. Allah Ta'ala is asking us for other forms of sacrifice. Something else that, it was a calamity that had took place was that on the day of the Battle of Badr, which was the 17th of the month of Ramadan, it was also the day that the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, Ruqayya radiallahu anha, passed away. What do the scholars say about this? That this is a lesson for the believers, that even when you're victorious in this world, remember your victory is temporary, and that you are to see life and to see death. You are to see ups and downs. The decree all lies in the hands of Allah Ta'ala. So the same day, it's a joyful day that the greatest ru'usul kuffar, the heads of the disbelievers, and we didn't even mention a lot of their names, but Uqba bin Mu'ayth and all these other people, they, their lives, Allah Ta'ala granted the Muslims the ability to avenge themselves, right, on this day. So again, going back to some of those few lessons, that we should recognize the sacrifice that they gave, and the sacrifice that is our responsibility. We should recognize the value of Iman and everything that we have to give for the sake of Iman. And we should recognize the struggle that we have to make in Ramadan, outside of the month of Ramadan, for the sake of the preservation of our Iman. May Allah Ta'ala grant us the love of these Sahaba radiallahu anhum. May Allah Ta'ala grant us the love of the Prophet ﷺ, their sacrifices, the ability to value them, and then the ability to imitate them and bring them within our lives. Jazakumullah khairan. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.